All right, I am recording this so that I should have pressed record before I started with this, but that way if you need to look back at what keys to type in, it'll be recorded. And I do plan to get Canvas up and running, so that should be good to go. Okay, so once you have this typed in, to make the scatter plot, because we want to make sure that we're using the appropriate model. So we don't want to just use a linear model if this scatter plot wouldn't be linear or appear to be linear. So to make a scatter plot, what I'd like you to do, the very 5 top keys, the very first one on the left is y equals, and above that is stat plot. So that's what you want. So you want to hit second y equals, and it'll bring you to the stat plots screen. So second y equals, and then we want to turn plot 1 on and then make sure we're getting a scatter plot. So just hit enter. Number 1 should already be highlighted. Just hit enter. We want to turn it on. So hit enter as the cursor is hovering over on, so that on is highlighted. And then arrow down for the type. You want the scatter plot, which is the very first option. So hit enter when the cursor is over the scatter plot. Notice you can also make line graphs, you can make histograms, you can make box and whisker plots on your calculator. And then for X list and Y list, so the list that you typed your data into. So in my calculator, I typed the years into L1 and then the CO2 levels into L2. So you want to make sure that the names of your lists are what you actually typed your data into. Does anybody have different names there? They don't have the names of the right lists. Okay, perfect. And then the mark, so this is just how the dots are going to show up on your graph. So if you want the mark to look different, you can change it. And then you only have the color option if you have a color calculator. So once you have, once that is all set, one thing I'd like you to check is now just go to y equals, so not second, just go to y equals. Make sure where you see plot 1, plot 2, plot 3 along the top, that plot 1 is highlighted, plot 2 and plot 3 are not. Just y equals, not second, so just hit y equals. Bless you. And then if you have any functions typed in, like I have x squared typed in y1, I don't want that there, so clear any of those out. Just hit clear. And you might need to arrow down if you have multiple typed in there. Oh, I have multiple. I want to clear that as well. So clear that so nothing is typed in. Then the easiest way to graph your scatter plot so you have an appropriate window is to go to the middle top key, which is zoom. And you want zoom stat, which is option 9. So you can either arrow down to zoom stat and click enter, or just hit 9. Nice. And it'll give you a nice window for your scatter plot. Did anybody not get this screen? See you, Quinn. Good luck. If yours looks drastically different, it could be from your list that one of your values, maybe when you're typing them in, one of your values is off. I'm not sure. I mean, I'm sure there's a difference. I could look it up. I'll look it up because I'm wondering that too. Okay, everybody has this? Okay, so looking at this, I need your attention, please. Looking at this, we just want to make sure we're using the right model. So in looking at this graph, would you say a linear model would be appropriate? Okay. So once you decide what model would be appropriate, so I'm just going to list here, I use a different color. If you click clear, your graph will go away. It'll go to the home screen. But then if you hit graph again, you'll just go right back to it. So even if you hit clear, your graph isn't just gone forever. But we don't need it anymore. So linear model is what we're deciding would be appropriate. So now that means we need to do a linear regression to get the regression equation, which would be the best fit line for that scatter plot. So I'm just writing down we are doing a linear regression. And I will show you how to do that. So you are going to go back to the stat key. But now, and remember too, I'm recording this so that all of the keystrokes and everything, if you need to look back at this, you can. So back to the stat key, but now you want the calc menu across the top. So you want to arrow one over to the right. And we are going to use the linear regression option 4. There is another linear regression option 8. And I know one says ax plus b, one says a plus bx. I'll be totally honest with you. I use option 4. I don't quite know how option 8 is different, but I use option 4. So you just want to either arrow down to 4 or click 4. And now this is where, depending on your calculator, you might have a different screen. So does anybody not get this screen? Unless you have a different calculator. Yes. So stat over to calc 4. Your screens look like this? Yeah. Awesome. Okay. So your X list. Now again, this is where my X list was in list 1, not L2. So I need to change mine. So if any of you need to change yours, if you look down at your 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 buttons, above them in blue or whatever color you have, you should see L1, L2 through L6. So if I want L1, I can just click second 1, and now it changed to L1. And then my Y list was L2. For this, I believe this stands for frequency, but you don't need to put anything here. This means store regression equation. This is very helpful if you want to graph your equation or even use your equation to find function values. So I'm going to show you how to store it. We can store this into Y values. That means when you then click Y equals, your equation will be stored in there, and you don't have to type it in. So to do this, let's see, it would be not the farthest column, right next to it, you should see a key that says vars, V-A-R-S. So if you click vars, and we want across the top 3 menus, we want Y vars. So over to the right once. We are working with functions. So enter 1 for function. And then you can put it into whichever function you want to. I'm just going to put it into Y1. So click enter. And then it'll have Y1 there. So now when it calculates the regression equation, when I go to Y equals in Y1, it's going to have that equation already in there. And then just arrow down to calculate. First of all, everybody good with what's typed in here? Okay, hit calculate. And it'll calculate it gives you the form of the equation. So A is the slope, B is the y-intercept. It gives you the A and the B. You do not need the r squared and the r. You don't need to worry about it because you don't need it. I think that's something that can be turned on. It's like diagnostic, but we don't need that. So if yours doesn't do that, right now it's okay. All right, did anybody not get these exact values? Okay. If you didn't get r squared or r, that's okay. I think that's, you have to turn the diagnostic on your calculator on, but you don't need that anyway. So if you don't have r squared and r, it's fine. But if you're, what? Oh, yeah, I did. If you did not get the same value for A and B, some value in your list must be wrong.
Yeah, I didn't want to.
Yeah. Yeah. So then, oh, so you used, oh, so then yours should be okay. Right, but I'm thinking if you used your equation to find a function value, as long as, like, say you wanted to find it for, I don't know, whatever year, I don't know, that should be okay as long as you still are substituting in x values that still match up. Yeah, yeah. Okay, so anyway, here's our regression equation. So typically in calculus, get in the habit, if you're ever rounding a value, round to 3 decimal places. Always. Unless it tells you otherwise, it is assumed on the AP test that you round to 3 decimal places. So if you only rounded to, say, 1 decimal place on the AP test, your answer is wrong. So our equation then would be, and I can say I'm just using x and y because it doesn't specify variables. So I can say it's y equals, rounding the slope would be, so I just move my document camera, 1.543x minus 2,717.62. We only have 2 decimal places there, so that's okay. So that would be using our data to find a model based on our table. Mm-hmm. Yes. You just have to remember how to type it in, yes. All right, and you can do this. You may have seen from the screen where we went to linear regression. You can also do a quadratic regression, a cubic regression. So if we saw that a parabola would fit our data, we could do it that way as well. And then, what time do we have? Example 3 goes along with example 2. I do want to show you on your calculator, if you hit y equals, you should see the equation already typed in for you for y1 because it stored it in there. So in example 3, it says to use the linear model in example 2 to estimate the carbon dioxide level for 1987 and to predict the level for the year 2010. And then it also asks a third question, according to this model, when will the CO2 level exceed 400 parts per million? So I just want to show you, and this is more of me wanting to show you how to use your calculator. Say we were finding the carbon dioxide level for 1987. On your calculator, you do not have to use this particular model and substitute 1987 in for X. You can have your calculator do the whole thing for you by doing this. So if you, let's see, I need you to set something up. So first of all, across the top, we're going to be using the second key and the last key, but we're going to have to hit second first. So first I want you to go to second and then window for the table setup. So it says TBL set, but when you go there, it's table setup, second window. Table start, you don't have to worry about right now. The change in the table, don't worry about right now. But what I want you to do, if it isn't set at this already, where it has independent, I want you to highlight ask. So arrow down, auto might be highlighted, especially if your calculator is new. Go over to ask and hit enter. That's saying I want to type in the X values. And then it'll automatically calculate the Y value, the dependent variable. So now if I go, first of all, is that part okay?
Yep.
Okay. Now if I go to second graph, because I want table, so second graph. Now I have some values already in here, and if you had some in there, if you're using a school calculator, to get rid of them, you have to hit the delete key, which is the third column, DEL, and you have to hit that for every single one to get rid of them. So once it's blank here, I can type in any X value I want to, and it's going to calculate the Y value. So if I wanted to calculate for 1987, I would just type in 1987, hit enter, and it gives you the Y value. Now you can go over to that Y value and highlight it because the table is only going to show you a specific number of decimal places. So if you highlight it, it'll show you at the bottom more decimal places so that you can actually round it to 3 decimal places. So in 1987, it's saying the carbon dioxide level would be about 348.983 parts per million. All right, does that make sense? How to do that on the calculator?
I'm going to forget it, but
Okay, I'm recording this so that you can look back at it too. Fast forward to the end to see how to do it. So you will be using that function on your calculator probably a lot because it calculates function values really quickly for you. Because then if I wanted also the carbon dioxide level in 2010, well now I just need to type underneath that 2010. It gives me that value as well. So it's just quick. All right, questions? How do you escape your table? Does clear escape it? No. Okay, so if clear doesn't escape your table and you want to get back to the home screen, above mode, second column top key, you see quit. You just have to hit second mode and it goes back to the home screen.
Or it's also quicker if you just say graph and it'll always clear the graph.
That works too.